Let's call this meeting to order. And as a first call, I'll ask the town clerk to do the roll call.
John Donovan. Here. Michael Hurley.
Here.
Jay Lipp.
Here.
Gaylord Meyer.
Here.
Eric Sunman.
Here.
Pete Ambrose.
Here.
Catherine Burstein.
Here.
Nathaniel Schindler. Jeff Steele.
Here.
Keith Varian.
Here.
Ed Bateson.
Here.
Laura Devlin.
Here.
Hank Ferentz.
Here.
Dave McKenzie.
Here.
Mary McCullough.
Here.
Heather Dean.
Present.
Joe DiMartino. Bill Gerber.
Here.
Joe Palmer.
Here.
Cindy Waldron.
Here.
Josh Garskoff.
Here.
Lauren O'Brien.
Here.
Andrew Semmel.
Here.
Ruth Smay.
Here.
Carol Way.
Here.
Julie Gottlieb.
Here.
Alan Marks.
Here.
Sheila Marmion.
Here.
Jay Wolk.
Here.
Liz Ezema.
Here.
Jen Hochberg.
Here.
Kevin Hopkins. Eric Newman.
Here.
Phil Pierce.
Here.
Hal Schwartz. Kathy Braun. Alex Durrell.
Here.
Jason Lee.
Here.
Tom McCarthy.
Here.
Jeff Milarano.
Here.
Pam Iacono.
Here.
Ellen Jacob.
Here.
Lori McCardle.
Here.
Carol Pontrelli.
Here.
Chris Timniak.
Here.
Brian Caffarelli. Brian Farnan.
Here.
Ray Newberger.
Here.
Bill Perugini. Bruce Ryan.
Here.
Ready? All right, may I ask everybody to stand and ask Representative McCullough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. If you all remain standing for a moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. First item on the agenda is to elect a moderator. May I have nominations? Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Ed Bateson, District 3. At this time, I'd like to put into nomination Representative Iacono for the role of moderator. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Hurley. Any other nominations? All right. Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We've got a couple of abstentions in back. Representative Smay, Representative O'Brien. Any others? All right. Congratulations, Representative Iacono. The microphone and the podium is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your confidence in me. I'm looking forward to working for all of you and to continuing to work for all of Fairfield. The next item on our agenda is to elect a deputy moderator. Are there any nominations? Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, District 1. I'd like to nominate Hank Ferentz, District 3, for the role of Deputy Moderator.
Is there a second? Representative Ambrose. Second. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the nominations? Moved by Ambrose, seconded by Representative Marks. All in favor of closing the nominations, say aye. Aye. All in favor of Representative Hanks as taking over as Deputy Moderator, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Representative Herron. The next item on the agenda is to nominate and elect members to serve on the Special Legislative Management Committee. Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson. The Republicans are going to put up myself, District 3, Michael Hurley, District 1, and Catherine Braun, District 8, for the 3 Republican representatives on the SLMC.
Are there any other nominations? Representative Marmion.
The Democrats are putting up myself, Sheila Marmion, and Hal Schwartz.
Are there any other nominations? May I have a motion to close the nominations? Moved by Representative Marks, seconded by Representative Gottlieb. All in favor of closing the nominations, please say aye. Aye. Passes. All in favor of Representative Bateson, Representative Hurley, Representative Braun, Representative Marmion, and Representative Schwartz serving on the Special Legislative Management Committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Congratulations. Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. I'd like to make a motion to take items out of order. I would like to proceed directly to item number, I believe it's 7, to consider and act upon the Board of Education.
So you'd like to move to suspend the rules and take item number 7 next?
That's what I meant.
Okay. Is there a second? Representative Garskoff. This is a 2/3 vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? The item passes. So we will take this item out of order. The next item is to consider and act upon the following resolution recommended by the Board of Education. Resolved that in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute 10-53DB, the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the Fairfield Education Association for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018 is rejected. May I have a motion to approve? May I have a motion for discussion? Representative Bateson. Seconded by Representative Hutchberg. This is harder than you think. Is there any discussion? No discussion? Okay. Are we prepared? Oh. Representative Palmer.
Joe Palmer, District 4. With my wife and I being lifelong residents of Fairfield and products of the school system here, along with 16 other members of our family, 3 generations, I truly appreciate and thank you for the role you play in preparing our children and in the town to reach their full potential in life. Regarding the contract, I think it clearly represents progress, and I do intend to approve it, or do intend to support it. However, I believe the progress in taking pressure off the Board of Ed budget is still slower than what I believe is necessary, primarily related to health care and specifically reducing the amount of the premium the district subsidizes and reducing the overall plan costs. As a member of the RTM for the past 5 years, I recall and appreciated the low compensation increases the bargaining unit agreed to over the past 2 contracts. So I understand why higher compensation was agreed to in this contract. But despite the changes in cost share, this new agreement doesn't help the district avoid the excise tax on Cadillac health plans, which is projected to cost roughly $850,000 when it goes into effect in the latter half of 2018. So it's easy to assume that this won't be absorbed easily into the Board of Ed budget, and in turn could impact property taxes, could place limitations on investments in educational resources, or even put them out of reach, and potentially force the district to look at reducing operating and programming costs elsewhere. It'd also be very difficult for residents to accept that the Cadillac tax wasn't avoided, and now they'll have to foot the bill and or lose services to fund it, especially when their own health care costs are increasing sharply. So please don't misunderstand me as being confrontational or unsupportive of education. I understand how crucial it is to create an employee value proposition that's conducive for attracting and retaining top talent. I have a daughter who's just entering the school system. Of course, I want the best of the best for her. But no one benefits from having to pay the Cadillac tax. And I just feel strongly that the bargaining unit and the Board of Ed had a responsibility to taxpayers to resolve this or at least reduce the district's liability in a significant way. Thanks.
Representative Gottlieb.
Julie Gottlieb, District 6, through you, Madam Moderator. I'd like to ask the Chairman of the Board, Phil Dwyer, to come up and briefly explain the net cost savings to the town.
Chairman Dwyer.
Let me try and answer it this way, but our attorney who has tracked all the numbers probably has more specific numbers that he could supplement the answer with. First, I would say that Dave Becker and I, from a volunteer perspective, served on the committee, and we looked at a variety of issues, but net, we said, which of these scenarios would produce the best savings to the town while providing a respectable response to the teachers who bargained on their side. We thought the one that we are recommending to you, both Dave and I are recommending to you, produces both. I have to thank Bob Schmaler and his team for the respectful approach they took. They bargained hard, and the town bargained hard, but at the end of the day, the teachers did exactly what Mr. Palmer said. They put the needs of the students in the town ahead and found a balance that they could accept. The PPO that we accepted, plus the salary increase over the 3 years, net versus the salary increase in an HDHP plan, there's virtually no contest. There was a substantial savings for the one that we're recommending to you. There was hardly any savings for the HDHP plan because our demographics are different from the town. We don't have to worry about health insurance for retirees. The town does. We had a different plan design, a different co-insurance, and so when the insurance company, Aon, priced out the HDHP plan for the town, they said the best deal for the town is to go in that direction. They priced out the two different plans for the school district, and based on our demographics, they said the PPO is the best way for you to go, net when you're talking about savings to the town. Don, I don't know whether you have any more specific numbers than that to address the question.
Attorney Don Houston.
Good evening. I believe the question was, what was the net? The approximate projected salary increase in this 3-year agreement is $7 million, although in all likelihood it will not cost that much due to turnover, retirements, et cetera. But if you take it at its current projected cost of $7 million, you then compare it to the cost mitigation to insurance affected by the revisions to the PPO plan and the increases to the premium cost share. Had we done nothing with the PPO plan or with insurance, projections were that the board would expend $47 million in insurance over the 3 years of this term. With the cost mitigation, it is anticipated that the board would spend $3.1 million less, $44 million. If you net out the cost mitigation against the $7 million projected cost increases, you have a net number of $3.9 million. If you take the $3.9 million and divide it by base year salary, this year's salary, account of $75.7 million, you come up with a number of 5.1%. Divide that by 3, comes out to 1.7% per year. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Gottlieb, did you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to finish up. Thank you very much. I will be supporting this contract for all the numbers and the financial reasons, but also because I spend a lot of time in this room, not only with this body, but as a Board of Ed rep, and sitting and listening to parents and individuals and teachers who constantly talk about how nothing is more important than how good our schools are and how good the education our children are getting, much as Representative Palmer just pointed out. And we continue to get awards. We just got another award as recently as a week or so ago. And this is in no small part due to the number of people that are standing in this room or could not be here tonight. And I think it is incredibly important that we continue to attract and keep the people that are making our schools as good as they are. And I will support this contract.
Thank you. Can you please refrain, you guys, please refrain from applause. Thank you. Representative Lip.
Madam Moderator, to Mr. Dwyer, can you project, based upon this contract that's going to be approved or rejected tonight, what the net increase in the Board of Education budget will be in May, so that we can discuss that now, advice fight over in May? Thank you. Total budget.
The number that we have is related to 75%, 80% of the budget, which is salaries and health. And we believe that those two line items is going to go up about 1.7%. The other line items, utilities and whatnot, we didn't look at that. We were looking at containing the majority of our expenses, salaries and health, to a number that is less than the 2% number. So we think it's going to go up about 1.7%. But the budget process hasn't been finished for 2015, so if it comes in slightly higher than that, don't say, hey, Phil, what you said. That's the projection at the moment.
Thank you. Have you given direction to Dr. Title and his team on what you expect the projected budget to be based upon this contract? Because that's a goal, and that's his tasking, to provide you the budget, and we're going to live with the contract we approve or reject tonight for the next 3 years. Thank you.
As a Board of Education, we have not in the past with any of our superintendents said, here's the number we're looking at, you figure it out. We have asked the superintendent to say, what are the needs of our district, the needs of our students, and come in with a responsible budget. This superintendent, Dr. Title, I think over the last several years, has come in with a responsible budget, but we do not put a number out there and say, make it fit. We say, what are the needs of the district, and use the management skill that you and your staff have to try and bring it in on a responsible basis.
Thank you. My concern is that each year during the budget season, the RTM members have been told that the increase in the educational budget were due mostly to contractual obligations, the teachers' contracts, the administrators' contracts, and so forth. And these had been approved in the past, and we were causing the budget to be more than the town could afford. In the end, we were either raising taxes more than the citizens could or wanted to afford, or reduce the increase in the budget, and forcing Dr. Title to cut programs or reduce staff, eliminating teachers or classroom resources. Doing this has always angered parents and has never been popular. I always felt that the budget, sound and affordable, should go through the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and then to the RTM as the Board of Education proposes. Tonight we're going to vote on the town's largest contract, the contract that shapes the future of 3 years of budgets. Now, before the budget hearings, this is the time, and it's imperative that the RTM takes into consideration the effect not just on the coming budget, but on those that will follow in the next 3 years. We need to ask ourselves, is a 3% increase each year more than other budgets that we're going to be voting on during this session and other sessions? The 3% budget is greater than, the increase is greater than the rate of inflation, which is 1.4, projected in 2015 to be 1.8. Our United States military, the all-volunteer force, receives less than a 2% increase for the last 5 years, and next year we'll only see a 1% increase. Although new contracts have teachers contribute more each year to the health insurance, each year the predicted increase in health care, of course, goes up approximately 8%. By eliminating, so that's a concern, by eliminating the steps, one per year for 2 years, over the year 2 and year 3, teachers will reach top step 1 or 2 years earlier, and some teachers will go up equivalent of 4 steps in 2 years. Will experience a much larger than a 3% increase. Finally, the projected 1.7% increase in education budget due to just personnel, salary, and benefits. With that, can the Board of Education goal for the increase of the budget be stated here tonight on Fair TV to be no more than 2% increase? Can the Board of Education send a budget to the RTM and taxpayers that we can afford, and the RTM doesn't have to fight it out? It would be really wonderful in May if we can go through and the process is really smooth and we don't have parents, teachers, and everyone upset because a budget's been submitted that we can't afford. Tonight, if the Board of Education limits the budget increase to May to 2%, and we can say that that's their goal, I give my word I will fully support the budget and this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members who wish to speak? Representative McCarthy.
Tom McCarthy, District 8. I'd like to echo two of the points made tonight. I'm conflicted about this contract. As some of you know, my wife taught in Fairfield and still teaches. I have two concerns. As Representative Lipp pointed out, in many respects, this is more the budget meeting we're going to have in May. And I feel like, in some respects, to vote on this budget without understanding I'm thinking of voting this contract without its full impact on the budget, not knowing the Fairfield, the education budget in aggregate, in some respects I'm making a decision in a vacuum, and that concerns me. The other element of this I'm happy about is that the contract is moving in the right direction in terms of addressing the Cadillac tax, but unfortunately not quickly enough. It's an exposure. It needs to be addressed. I can't bury my head in the sand on this, so I'm very conflicted, very concerned. And at this point in time, unless we have assurances as to what the education budget is likely to be, what the increase is going to be, I'm having difficulty supporting it.
Representative Hurley, then Representative Hopkins.
Michael Hurley, District 1. I support the contract. I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable. And I hope others support it. Thank you.
Representative Hopkins.
Good evening, Kevin Hopkins from District 7. I just want to ask a question to Mr. Houston. Can you tell us what is going to be the next step if this contract was rejected by us tonight?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
If this contract is rejected by the RTM, the entire negotiation proceeds to binding interest arbitration, excuse me, pursuant to the Teacher Negotiations Act. That would start immediately, well, 5 days.
And one more question. If we went to arbitration, can you give us an idea of, actually it's going to be two more questions. Can you give us an idea how much it would cost the town to go to arbitration?
Arbitration is not inexpensive. I cannot give you a number because at this point in time I would not have any idea as to how many of the various proposals that had originally been on the table would be back on the table. The Fairfield Education Association made numerous cost-related proposals, which in the interest of getting a mutually agreeable collective bargaining agreement, they took off the table. All or any part of those may go back on the table. Each one would constitute an issue. In interest arbitration, each issue is like a small case in and of itself. So I would not rule out that interest arbitration could cost upwards of $100,000 with no guarantee that you can do any better than we have done in this labor agreement. As one of the gentlemen said earlier, in my opinion, this is a fair and reasonable collective bargaining agreement consistent with the negotiations that have been resolved in the state this year, and I would urge you to support it by voting no, meaning not to reject it.
Thank you. I just want to preface my remarks by saying that, in the interest of full disclosure, my wife is a member of this bargaining unit also. But, you know, for those of you who are sitting on the fence, I understand where you're coming from, that you want to get us to certain numbers in the budget, and that's important. However, I think the real issue for us to discuss tonight and to consider is it really possible to get there? We just have limitations on what we can do. We have a bargaining unit which we've bargained with at arm's length. You know, we had a strong bargaining team from the Board of Ed. I'm sure the other side had a strong bargaining team, and this is what they came out with. This was the best deal they could get. To put it back now or to take a chance on arbitration is taking a chance on this being more expensive for us. So, you know, I would just ask people to really consider things from that perspective, that this was an arm's length negotiation. People from both sides bargained in good faith. So that's what we really should do, and we should approve this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the body? Representative Gerber, then Representative Marks, Representative Timniak.
Bill Gerber, District 4. I just have, I'm a little unclear about something Representative Lipp said. I heard him say we have a 3% increase in our wages and comp line, and I thought I heard 1.7% from Mr. Dwyer. Can you clarify, please?
Yes. I was asked by the gentleman to give an assessment of what I thought the net number, considering the salary increase and the insurance concessions, would look like. And I indicated that on the salary settlement, the costing it out from the current $75.7 million to $82 million and change was a projected $7 million of increase. At the same time, on the insurance side, with the revisions to the PPO and the increase to the premium cost share from current 20 to 23% over the life of this contract, the projected cost increases to the insurance would be mitigated by $3.1 million. That is, if you had projected forward the current PPO at the current 20% premium cost share, the 3-year expenditure would be approximately $47 million. With the insurance revisions and the increases to the premium cost share, the anticipated expenditures would be $3.1 million excuse me, less. If you subtract the $3.1 million from the projected $7 million of salary increases, you have a projected cost increase over the term, comparing salary to insurance, of $3.9 million divided by the base year salary of $75.7 million results in a percentage increase of 5.1%, which if divided by 3 would average 1.7% per year.
I did that in my head, and it was spot on. And I do have a question, because I think there was a misconception about step plus wage plus inflation. And I'm just curious. I mean, my understanding of steps is, you know, as a teacher, it's part of the reason you become a teacher. You come in a relatively low salary, and then each year with experience and with accreditations and things, you can step up, and then you reach a maximum, then there's no longer a step, and you're just getting the wage increase. Are you aware, I mean, I actually don't think I'm aware of any schools, any districts that don't have this system. Are you aware of any that don't have this system?
I'm not aware of any district in the state that...
Please use the microphone.
Sorry. I'm not aware of any contracts in the state for teachers that do not employ a step advancement system, which, as Mr. Gerber indicated, is designed for newer teachers to come in at lower salaries and then proceed to higher salaries as they become more experienced. So my answer to Mr. Gerber's question is no, I do not know of any.
And this might be impossible to answer, but the Cadillac tax, we keep hearing we've got to get rid of the Cadillac tax, which makes it sound sort of like a unilateral thing. We can just get rid of it if we push hard enough. But can you sort of give us some perspective of that? Or can somebody give us some perspective? What does that mean, getting rid of the Cadillac tax? Has anyone been able to do that? I mean, this is a negotiated process, right?
I'll give it a shot. But know that I have two insurance consultants on my left who I can call upon at any moment. Under the Affordable Care Act, as of 2018, if the cost of your insurance plan exceeds $10,200 for an individual or $27,500 for either a husband, a wife, or a family, then the excess of the cost above those numbers is taxed at 40% as an excise tax, also known as the Cadillac tax. So the only way you can get rid of the Cadillac tax, which is set to come into effect in 2018, is to reduce the cost of your plan below those numbers, which, to maintain a plan that is otherwise consistent with the Affordable Care Act, can be next to impossible. Because if you dilute the plan too much, then you don't satisfy other components of the Affordable Care Act. Now, we employed our two consultants from Aon Consulting, as well as a consultant from Millman and Company, and we were not able to come up with any construct that was able to eliminate the Cadillac tax, not under any scenario. In some circumstances, we were able to reduce it more significantly than in this particular agreement that we're bringing before you, but at a cost to the underlying cost of the plan itself, which did not save us any money. We looked at a variety of options, and on the theory that what the town was looking for were dollars and cents reductions, it was the unanimous consensus of our consultants that the insurance revisions and premium cost shares that we bring before you tonight were the best of all possible worlds. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Marks.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Alan Marks, District 6. Half great minds must think alike, because Representative Gerber took one of my points and already made it, which was that we need to look at this as a whole, even though there may be a 3% increase over the life of this on the increase. Because of the savings, it really is 1.7%, so I think we need to look at this as a whole contract instead of just one part of it. The other points I wanted to make is that I believe that this contract was negotiated very well on our behalf by our attorney and the other members of the team. It is supported, it appears to be supported by the union and the arguments have been made very well on the contract by the members of the team on our side. This contract does address the one issue, or one of the issues, that we have been talking about for years, which is insurance costs, and that helps the town over the long haul. So I believe this is good for the town. I intend to support it. And one other point, Madam Moderator, I would just ask that when we vote, there is a clarification on whether a no vote is supporting the contract or not supporting the contract, so there's no confusion. Thank you.
I will have Attorney Houston speak to that right before we vote, so that that's clear in their head and clear in everyone's mind. I believe Representative Timniak was next.
Good evening, everybody. Chris Timniak, District 9. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out. This is great participation, and I encourage this for all of our other votes, and I also encourage you to hang around for the rest of the night, because I'm going to be giving a presentation on redistricting, which I know is at the top of most of the people's minds. Not student redistricting, political redistricting. Let's clarify that. Yeah. So I want to thank the teachers who are here for doing more with less. Every year, there's a squeeze on the budget. And we as politicians and your representatives recognize that. And we do our best to balance as much as we can. This year is big for me because it's the first year I have a kindergarten going to school here at the Fairfield school system. I love it when he comes home with a smile on his face. I love that he now colors with inside the lines. He knows all his letters, and he's reading, and he's been there since September, so he's showing great progress. That being said, I am going to support the contract. There's not everything I like about the contract, but the contract gives an option for something I really like, and that's the HSA plan. The HSA plan is an alternative to the PPO plan, which we have now. It's not for everybody, but lots of towns take that into consideration. The numbers I have from the state of Connecticut are 131 boards of education offer HSA plans. Of those 131, 101 towns offer two plans. They offer a PPO and an HSA plan. The HSA plan not only could be a lesser plan or a lesser option for the teachers to take, but it's also cost effective. So if we had a young teacher who didn't go to the doctor as often or didn't need everything the PPO plan offers, an HSA alternative may, perhaps, depending upon how it's negotiated, could potentially be a cost savings for the teachers and could be a cost savings to the town. That being said, on page 25 of the contract, the board, and this is what I want to ask the board to do, the board, it says, the board may implement a comprehensive plan as an alternative to the PPO plan and may also implement an HDP, HP, HSA plan as an alternative to the PPO plan. Details and premium cost share of the comprehensive plan or the HDP, HSA plan shall be determined by the board. Participation by any teacher in the comprehensive HDP, HDHP plan or HSA plan is voluntary. Everything I just said is, can be summarized as I really ask the board to take advantage of this in the contract and do continue to do the diligence of finding out every year of the years this plan's in place. See if there's an option which may be better for the town and may be better for the teachers. I don't see any reason why the town of Fairfield can't and shouldn't offer more options when it comes to health care for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Ambrose.
Peter Ambrose, District 2. I'd like to commend Attorney Houston. I think he's done a fine job on negotiating this contract on behalf of the town. I think it's a fair contract, and I support it.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the body that, Representative Jacobs?
Hi, everybody, and colleagues. Ellen Jacob, District 9. I have been, if it's possible, to have curlier hair tonight. I do, because it's absolutely torturous to, on the one side, have the taxpayers who are hurting. On the other side, have a room full of teachers who look anxiously at our vote tonight. I think all sides are earnest and have worked hard and done the best they can. I have been sitting here like a one-man Greek chorus, going from side to side. I'm being quite honest. I do feel we need to make improvements on what we get out of these contracts for taxpayers more quickly, because we can't really afford this. On the other hand, I'm fighting with myself. So I am hoping that Representative Lipp's words did reach the decision makers at central office. If we pass this plan tonight, and teachers, I hope you hear too, we need your help in keeping that budget down, because it is too much for our town. The only way we can make it work is if we can keep the school budget down. Thank you.
Why am I drawing a blank? Oh, Representative Walk, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. I even have a giant little cheat sheet with pictures. I'm so sorry, Jay.
Check that out, Heather.
I knew that was going to happen.
Can't make this up, right, Heather? Jaywalk District 6. I have a few letters in my hand that came to me in the mail from constituents in my district who are teachers. Teachers are taxpayers too. I'm a taxpayer too. We're all hurting. But I have to commend Phil Dwyer and the Board of Ed, Dr. Title, and our attorney for doing a great job. And I just want to say that I am going to fully support this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Walk. Is there anyone else? Representative Steele.
Jeff Steele, District 2. I'll be quick. I support this agreement. I don't support this microphone being as tall. And Pam, it happens. You sometimes forget names. It's happened the
I
best.
said when I left the house, just don't let me
I think you
forget
forgot
anyone's
my name one time, Jay. I support the contract. I think the give back by the teachers, the bargaining unit, is significant. I think the increased healthcare costs paid by them, the deductibles, is significant. I think we've made progress year by year or contract by contract and getting to cost savings for the town. So I think this is a good contract. It's fair, and I think we'll continue to make more progress that's fair to the town and teachers moving forward. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Anybody else from the body before I go to the public? I am going to allow public comment on this item. How many people wish to speak tonight at the podium? Can you please give me a show of hands so I have an idea? All right, I'm only seeing about 5 or 6 people, so if you want to come to the mic, line up and speak. In the interest of time, if you could be brief, I know you want to get to an end result as well. Please step forward and state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Bob Smoller, and I'm the president of the Fairfield Education Association. And since it bears on the discussion you're having today, I'll also tell you that I've got 22 years experience in the healthcare industry and health insurance industry. And before I became a teacher, I left the health insurance business as the CEO of Oxford Health Plans in New York. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about what's going on in the healthcare field. In fact, I think in our room we had over 100 years of healthcare experience and health insurance experience negotiating out this contract and literally looked through every permutation that you could possibly imagine. I think the reason we ended up where we are is, you know, we're kind of constrained by the marketplace in these negotiations. There are many other districts in the state, and they set the tone for what it is that's possible. We would have certainly wanted some extra things. The Board of Ed certainly would have wanted some extra things. But I think what happened on the insurance plan is, you know, it was a priority for the members, my members, the teachers, to try to stay with the PPO construct because it was simpler, easier to use, something familiar. And the marketplace allows for higher cost shares on PPO plans than it does for high deductible health plans. And at the end of the day, you had a situation where the teachers preferred the PPO construct, were willing to pay more for it, and as a result, you ended up with a much larger savings under the contract than you otherwise would have. I will also say that on the salary side, the 9% is the market. That's where the market is. But I noticed one gentleman was talking about, you know, general wage increases. If you look at the 9%, most of it is going to allow teachers to just take a step. The general wage increase built into this contract is 0.82%. It's much lower than what exists even for CPI, for Consumer Price Index. So when you look at that 9%, most of it's just allowing teachers who came in at lower salaries to take a step up to the next level, and then beyond that, it's just a modest wage increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tina Brown, do I have to say my address?
Betsy,
Like we
does
do
she
in a
have to
board
say her
meeting, you have to
address?
say your address. Do I have to say my address?
Yes, please.
Okay. 35 Quaker Lane. I am a taxpayer and I am a teacher, and The health insurance part, I will leave to Bob and to the people at, was it Aon, if I got the name right? Because that's beyond me at this point in time. But as to the salary increase, you know, every year I hear teachers are getting more money, taxes are going up. Well, I made $2 more in my paycheck this year. That means I'm making $52 more for the entire year. And oddly enough, my taxes went up a whole lot more than that. The people at the top step, which is not me, actually had their pay go down every year for the past 3 years because they paid more in our health insurance. We pay an extra % every time, and their raise, I believe, was 0.25%. So is it a nice increase this time around for the teachers? It is. But for the past 5 years, we've been locked in, gotten nothing. We've lost a step and gotten 1%. We've gotten a step and no %. This is the first time in 5 years we're actually going to see more than $2. Literally $2 a paycheck. I'm a single mother of 2. $52 a year increase, not a whole lot. I appreciate what I get. I appreciate my job. I love what I do. But it's time we were treated a little more fairly.
Thank you. If I can ask everybody to please refrain from applause. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to speak?
Hi, my name is Martha Murphy. I live at 720 Wellington Drive in Fairfield, District 3. Those of you in District 3, you've heard from me already. I wasn't planning on speaking, so forgive my ad-libbing. I live, obviously, in Fairfield. I have a son at Dwight, a son at Roger Ludlow. I'm a teacher at Riverfield School. I've been teaching in Fairfield for 15 years. It's an amazing place. We have an amazing group of people here. One gentleman tonight spoke about resources. I encourage you to look around. These are our resources. Many of us taxpayers, many of us residents, many of us send our kids to school here. So please show us your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Charles Flynn from Fairfield Ward High School. For the past 17 years, it's been my privilege to teach your children. I've given everything I have. I am also the father of 3 children. Teaching to me is a great privilege and it's a great responsibility. I teach civics. Many of you have been in my classroom. I tried to teach them not only about the U.S. government and Connecticut, but the very unique nature of the body we are here at tonight, the RTM. Teaching to me is a passion, it's a privilege. I work a second full-time job and 2 other part-time jobs so that I can do this. It's the passion of my life other than my children. I understand the taxpayers' concerns. I'm a taxpayer myself, but not in this town. I also understand what we've given up in previous contracts, and I know myself that there's very, very little room for me to sacrifice further, and I appreciate all this sacrifice of the Fairfield taxpayers. Please understand the risks that a binding arbitration may open up. It is much more than just the dollars and cents. It also involves our working conditions, our class size, and the product we are able to provide you. I've had offers from other districts. I've remained. I love this place. I love this town. This means something to me. I hope all of you will consider that this is an investment. The rewards you might not see this week or next month. You may see them in 5 years or 10 years. The other day after one of our horrific Tuesday meetings, a student came in and told me that they had been accepted to college. Measure that. I appreciate your time. I recognize the burdens of the taxpayers. I appreciate the privilege of being here for the last 17 years, and I hope you will think twice. And I guess we're saying, please don't reject the contract. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Mr. Patton? I believe Mr. Patton will be the last speaker unless there was somebody else in line. Is that right? Okay.
There's no Pez.
Sorry, I'm not in this body anymore. No piss. But I was on this body for several years, and I know what you're going through. And let me read a couple of financial numbers for you. Brookfield, 2.99%. Greenwich, 2.99%. Darien, 3.2%. Weston, 3.37%. Bolton, 3.2%. Fairfield, 3%. Those are towns that have, as of a few weeks ago, settled contracts that were either higher or in the exact same range as what you're being asked to approve tonight. The Board of Ed went through the same questions that you've gone through since last week in your committee meetings, of which I did attend. The Cadillac tax, the most frustrating thing you can imagine. HSA versus PPOs. Savings, savings, savings. We all know it. There's no new facts here, other than the fact that we want to give a fair contract. The units and both sides bargained in good faith and came up with rational solutions. Both sides gave up things that they wanted. And you have the contract that you've got now, which, seeing as you know what's happened in this town in the last 5 years, teachers have gotten years with 0%. You know, call inflation what you will, call the raises in public sector what you will, but this is what the teachers deserve. It's fair, and please support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the body. Are there any other members of the body who wish to speak to this item? You want to call the question? All right, there's a motion to call the question. It's non-debatable. All those in favor of calling the question, it's a 2/3 vote. Can we do this by voice? Are you all in favor of? Please signify by saying aye if you'd like to call the. Aye. Opposed? Representative Marks, Representative Garskoff, Representative Dean. Abstentions? The item passes. I'm going to read the motion again. I only asked for a motion to discuss, so I'm just going to, for formality's sake, read it again, ask for a motion for approve in second. And before we vote, I'm going to ask Attorney Houston to again clarify what your vote means and how it works. Because if you vote no, you're voting in favor of the contract. If you voting yes, you're voting against this contract. And I'll let him explain that once I reread this. Resolved that in accordance with the Connecticut General Statute 10-53DB, the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the Fairfield Education Association for the period of July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2018 is rejected. Motion to approve. Representative McCullough, seconded by Representative Marks. Attorney Houston, would you mind just clarifying again how those votes work?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. The statute is awkwardly drafted, but basically the Teacher Negotiation Act provides that once the agreement is reached between the teachers union, in this case the Fairfield Education Association, and the Board of Education, it becomes valid and binding upon the town unless it is rejected by the legislative body within 30 days of submission to the town clerk. So the contract is currently in effect and binding unless you reject it. Therefore, the motion is framed as it is, move to reject the contract. The Board of Education would ask you to support the contract by voting no on the motion to reject.
Thank you for the clarification. Will the clerk please take the roll call vote?
John Donovan?
Yes.
Michael Hurley?
No.
Jay Liff?
No.
Gaylord Meyer?
Yes.
Eric Sunman?
No.
Kate Ambrose?
No.
Catherine Burstein? No. Jeff Steele?
No.
Keith Varian?
No.
Ed Bateson?
Yes.
Lawrence Devlin?
No.
Hank Ferentz?
No.
Dave McKenzie?
No.
Mary McCullough? Heather Dean?
No.
Bill Gerber?
No.
Joe Palmer?
No.
Cindy Waldron?
No.
Josh Garskoff?
No.
Lauren O'Brien?
No.
Andrew Semmel?
No.
Ruth Smay?
No.
Carol Way?
No.
Julie Gottlieb?
No.
Alan Marks. Sheila Marmion. Jay Walk. Liz Ezema. Jen Hochberg. Kevin Hopkins. Eric Newman. Phil Pierce. Kathy Braun. Alex Durrell. Jason Lee. Tom McCarthy. Jeff Malorano. Pamela Iacono.
No.
Ellen Jacob. Lori McCardle. Carol Pontrelli. Chris Timniak. Brian Farnan. Ray Newberger. Bruce Ryan. Kevin Hopkins. Seven.
The vote is 7 in favor, 37 opposed, 1 abstention. So that means that we have a contract in place. Thank you. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but please, thank you. You are all certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I'm going to just take a 2-minute break while we clear the room. All right. Yeah, isn't that cool? Hank did that. All right. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. And if I could just for 1 second acknowledge Representative McCullough's service as our moderator for the past year. It's very nerve-wracking being up here. I forgot to do that before, but I had it in my notes. So thank you for leading us for the past year. And I also just want to recognize State Representative-elect McCarthy Vahey, who is here this evening, and State Representative-elect Devlin, who will be leaving us. And I know State Senator-elect Wong was here. He seems to have left the room. Getting back to, and Representative Hurley from District 1, we all know. All right. We're not back at the minutes. We're back at the calendar. Yep. To consider and act upon the following resolution recommended by the town clerk. Resolved that in accordance with the town charter and the state filing rules, the representative town meeting hold their regular meetings for the year 2015 on the following dates: January 26th, February 23rd, March 23rd, April 27th, May 4th and 18th, June 22nd, July 27th, August 24th, September 28th, October 26th, November 30th, and December 21st. May I have a motion to approve? Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Marmion. Is there any discussion on this particular item? Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. Over the past couple of years, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, it seems like the RTM has had budget meetings that occur the first week. There seems to be a consistent pattern that has developed over the past 4 or 5 years. It seems like the first week of April, we're dedicating a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to budget hearings. And I think it's high time that we started to include that in our calendar for the simple reason that I know last year we ran into a little problem booking rooms and we wound up at Sherman. I just think it's more easy that from now that we expressed a desire to have these meetings and it's been consistent, I'd like to propose that we add 3 meetings, April 6th, 7th, and 8th. and I would call them RTM public budget meetings. You know, at a location to be determined, but I think it serves us, our body, for the simple fact that now when Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen are developing their budget calendar, they can work around us, and, you know, quite frankly, I think it's going to serve us easier to get rooms and just make this process smoother. So I would ask that would be an amendment to the calendar, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second? Representative Hurley. Is there any discussion? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that I did check. I know there's always an issue in April with the education, and I did check. I believe our school vacation starts the week after,
That is
beginning
correct.
Monday the 13th. So I did check that. Sorry.
All right, so there's a motion to add April 6th, 7th, and 8th to the calendar. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment and the amendment only? Seeing none, would the public care to comment on our calendar? Seeing no one from the public, back to the body. All in favor of the motion as amended, or the amendment, I'm sorry, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Back to the main motion as amended. Representative McCullough. Am I getting all this right? I saw your
McCullough,
hand, I thought I
District
did something
3.
wrong.
As we propose November 30th, that is the Monday right after Thanksgiving, which would mean our committee meetings the week before, Monday and Wednesday, would be the Wednesday. No? The town clerk is shaking her head. Could you just clarify when those would be? There'll be no committee meetings. Thank you.
Excellent. Is there any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. To hear, consider, and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting held on October 27th, 2014. May I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Ambrose, seconded by Representative Burstein. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. And before I get to the rest of the call, I just need to give you all notice that you should have gotten a copy of the standards of conduct, which are in the town charter, and the FOI requirements. That all comes out when you join the body. I, at the organizational meeting, am under an obligation to remind you of those. If anyone wishes for me to read them into the record, I can do that. Otherwise, I think we should all be all set. Consider yourself on notice. The next item on the agenda is to consider and act upon the following resolution recommended by the First Selectman. Resolved that a certain contract negotiated by and between the Town of Fairfield and the United Public Service Union, UPSEU, Unit Number 222, Town Hall Employees Association, concerning conditions of employment for the period ending June 30th, 2013, be and hereby is amended in the manner described in the attached memorandum of agreement so as to make the contract effective through June 30th, 2017, and to incorporate certain other changes regarding wages, hours, and other matters. May I have a motion to approve? Moved by Representative Hochberg, seconded by Representative Marmion. Is there any discussion from the body? Representative McKenzie.
David McKenzie, District 3. I have 4 concerns on this contract. The first is that, and this is also for the teacher's contract as well. People who went to committee meetings last Wednesday have had 4 days to think about these 2 contracts. And they're complicated. They have, the people who have worked on them have spent months, maybe years, working on them, and yet we're supposed to digest it, and make a thoughtful vote on it, which I think is difficult to do. The implication is that we ought to just rubber stamp it and pass it because we don't need to know in depth what's going on. I think that's a mistake. So my question is there any, and I don't know who to address it to, but is there any way to expand the time available between when the contract is presented to us and when we have to vote on it? That's concern number one. Mr. Selectman?
I'm going to allow the selectman to answer that.
And I'm going to ask Attorney Hibson for just the final ruling on that. But the simple answer is this. We have approximately 45 days from when the contract's signed to have it approved by this body, or it's automatically approved. That's state statute. So that's something we don't have. If this body were willing to meet on shorter notice, I don't know if that solves the issue either, but we do get the contract out to you as soon as we can after that. But between your subcommittee meetings and this, and have it in the packet on time, that 45-day window is not very long. It gets chewed up very fast. One of my initial thoughts earlier in the term was to try and get it on a Board of Selectmen agenda, even though the Board of Selectmen doesn't vote on it, but at least that would get it, in essence, out to you sooner and have a chance to have that discussed there. But matching up with Board of Selectmen agendas has also become problematic in doing that, so I haven't been able to keep to that. So does that, Attorney Hibson, did I get that roughly right?
How about making an effort to get the statute changed to 90 days?
There's been efforts made by CCM.
Can you please just state your name for the record?
Attorney Emmett Hibson. There have been changes proposed by CCM to make the MIRA, Municipal Employee Relations Act, similar to the State Employee Relations Act as far as how it gets approved. But the reality is the state has the same restrictions also. They have 28 days when the state is in session to approve a contract. So the state's fairly consistent. The Board of Ed has 30 days. There's actually, it's 30 days for us, but we have 15 days to submit it to the Common Council, so, or the legislative body. So that gives you the 45 days that First Tetro was talking about.
Thank you. I guess I'll move on to concern two. This contract is for 4 years, whereas I believe it's normally for 3. I'm not sure why it was extended to 4, maybe because some of the time has already passed and so it's retroactive. But it seems to me it would be important to keep that 3-year period because the elements of these contracts are important and ought to be reviewed at least on a 3-year frequency.
Let's see. For some reason, I'm not quite sure what the strategy was. As many of you know, a few years back, there are 7 contracts on the town side, and it was somebody's decision to line those all up so they all came due in the exact same year. As simply as I can state it, that's way too much work and way too many contracts and way too much negotiation going on all at the same time. So part of what our goal is to spread these out. If we have 7 contracts and we got 2 one year, 2 the next year, and maybe 3 the year after that, that might be something that's doable and will keep us on track. But without spreading them out somehow, and that means having different lengths of contracts as we go through and do this negotiation, it becomes virtually impossible. The amount of work that is done, especially when we're looking at health care, and when you look at the financial analysis between our insurance consultants and our CFO, Bob Mayer, in order to make sure we understand what the impact is on the town, but also that we understand what the impact is on the unions and our employees, so that we're making a fair request and fair decision on both sides. That's a tremendous amount of financial analysis that in the old days you didn't have to worry about. Now we do. So from that standpoint, we actually are trying to have different length contracts to spread them out so they don't all come due in the same year.
And then we'll go back to 3 on this after the 4.
We'll go back to what's appropriate based on the negotiation that we arrive at. 3 is certainly the number that has been used sometimes. It's not the number that's been used all the time. Otherwise, we never would have gotten them all 7 back to 1 year.
Thank you. My third concern, first I want to thank CFO Bob Mayer, who was tremendously responsive on all the questions that the body had and came back quickly and thoroughly, and we thank you very much for that. And part of that information was an indication of the increase in non-medical compensation to the employees in the union, which when you look at it over time, the percentage change over the period 2012 through 2017 is 4.2%. If you look at it for 2014 through 2017, it's probably just under 4, but close to 4. My concern is that is a hefty increase with inflation at 1.5%. And even though this is not the biggest union, we have to be mindful of what kind of increases are going out. And I don't know of anybody in this room who wouldn't like to be guaranteed about a 4% increase every year. So I have concerns about that level of increase. And finally, at the risk of being redundant, I'm concerned that we come all the way up to 2017 without really addressing the Cadillac tax, which is a 40% burden on the overage for the town. And I don't think the town wants to pay it. I certainly don't. So based on those elements, I will be voting no on approval of this contract. Thank you.
Any other members of the body wishing to address this issue? Mr. First Selectman. Sorry.
Thank you. I just want to point out that one of the issues with the Cadillac tax is that it's kind of one size fits all. So the same limitations that are being asked of our employees, our town, and our taxpayers to live with are the same ones that you'd have, same limitations and same levels for when the Cadillac tax would kick in that you'd have if you lived in North Dakota, that you'd have if you lived in Louisiana. And that's the problem. For those levels, you can get one heck of a health care plan in North Dakota. You can't get that here. Our costs are higher. So it's something that we need to change at the federal level because it's penalizing our town. It's also penalizing our employees. They're not getting treated equally. They're not getting treated fairly. It's something that has, excuse me, Mr. Hurley, you mind if I finish? Thank you. It's not getting treated equally all the way through. So I think that's the level, and I would encourage you each to take that up with the federal delegation and raise that issue there and see if we can get some changes on that.
Representative Palmer.
Joe Palmer, District 4. I agree with Mr. McKenzie on I guess the short period of time we have to review these contracts. I think we all understand that. I think one thing that can be very helpful, and I hate to be nitpicking here, but the Board of Ed put together really, I think, a real high-quality presentation that outlined the impact of the budget. It wasn't perfect, but there's several pages from Aon Hewitt, and I'm looking at you, First Selectman, but this is to the HR department as well. But I think Aon had put together the same presentation for the Board of Ed. I think we just need to maybe look at this as a model going forward as a way to make things clear so there aren't tons of follow-up. I think we got an email this evening at 5 o'clock that's kind of useless for us to make any decisions upon. So I was hoping we could look at creating a clear, consistent documentation. I know this is what we have seen in the past. I just never knew that this kind of presentation could be put together. So that would be great. Now, one thing on this contract, again, it appears that we've made a couple trade-offs. We've given an increase in salary over 4 years in return for changing to an HSA, which puts more of the burden on the employee in terms of the overall cost of health care. We've also put more of the post-retirement burden, which has saved us some money. One thing that is frustrating, though, is that we have, in the last 2 years of this contract, we've decreased the cost share. I don't understand why. This isn't a question, it's just a statement that we would make that reduction. I know this is something that the other bargaining units are going to look at, and I don't know why we've moved that back at all. So, again, that's just a statement. I'm going to support this. I think it moves us in the right direction, but it definitely isn't perfect, and there's a lot more work needed to, again, reduce these liabilities from healthcare and post-retirement health.
Thank you, Representative Palmer. Are any other members who wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, are there, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. I do support the agreement. I think over the past several years, we've seen definite movement on these contracts going into a defined contribution plan. And now I see we're starting to address health benefits through the adoption of the high deductible. I appreciate that. I think I want to say thanks to Mr. Mayor. This analysis that we got this afternoon, I appreciate it, and it's spot on. It's a different approach that I think we started to take towards compensation, viewing it in total. I remember several years ago, a decade ago or whatever it is, we would look at a contract, just general wage increase, and that's it. And I think we've expanded the way we consider these things into non-medical compensation, medical compensation to arrive at a total. I like the general wage increase. I don't have a problem with that. But then when I view the step, which is something that, quite frankly, I never really took into consideration, it bumps it up. So into the future, I would like us, I guess to the first selectman, maybe in the next round of negotiations, put that on your radar, that maybe the step, I appreciate the fact that in this contract, I don't believe there was a change to the step. The step remains the same. So, and I appreciate that, but I think maybe a time to lower it or lessen that impact, because when I see these 4% numbers per year, I essentially feel that's the step driving it. So going into the future, I would appreciate considering that, and also too, just more OPEB. I would appreciate addressing concerns to that. Thank you.
Representative Donovan.
District 1, John Donovan. I shared with the subcommittee, it's interesting when you look at some of these numbers, there's a study done in Connecticut. Public sector employees are actually paid more than private sector employees now in Connecticut. Study done by the state, happy to share it. People don't want to call out the elephant in the room. 2014 increase 4%, 15 3.7, 3.9, 3.9. These are rates that aren't being experienced in the private sector. It's just something that can't continue if the private sector is carrying the majority of these increases. So it means we're going to say, hey, we're going to pay a certain segment. We're going to let these other people who are paying their taxes take home a little less every week. There's got to be a balance at some point. Just wanted to make that comment. I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be voting against?
Don't confuse me. I got through that whole thing. Any other members that wish to address this item? Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item at this time? Seeing none, will the clerk please take a roll call vote? This is the normal vote. If you are not in favor of this contract, vote no, and that will be a rejection. If you are in favor of this contract, vote yes.
John Donovan? No. Michael Hurley?
Yes.
Jay Lipp?
No.
Gaylord Meyer? No. Eric Sunman? No. Pete Ambrose?
No.
Catherine Burstein? No. Jeff Steele?
Yes.
Keith Varian? Ed Bateson?
Yes.
Laura Devlin?
No.
Hank Ferentz?
Yes.
Dave McKenzie?
No.
Mary McCullough?
No.
Heather Dean?
Yes.
Bill Gerber?
Yes.
Joe Palmer? Cindy Waldron? Josh Garskoff? Lauren O'Brien? Andrew Semmel? Ruth Smay? Carol Way? Julie Gottlieb? Alan Marks? Sheila Marmion? Jay Walk? Liz Ezema? Jen Hochberg? Kevin Hopkins? Eric Newman? Phil Pierce? Hal Schwartz? Kathy Braun? Alex Durrell? Jason Lee? Tom McCarthy? Jeff Melrano? Pamela Iacono?
No.
Ellen Jacob? Laura McCardle? Carol Pontrelli? Chris Timniak? Brian Farnan? Ray Newberger? Bruce Ryan?
The vote count is 24 in favor, 22 opposed. The contract passes. The next item on our agenda is to hear and consider for the first time a redistricting ordinance. Shh, guys, I can't hear. To hear and consider for the first time a redistricting ordinance as recommended by the RTM Redistricting Ordinance Subcommittee. And I believe we will be hearing from Representative Timniak and Representative Pierce.
Hey, Chris.
What? I can't hear you. Oh. Do you need the podium, or are you guys okay over there? Oh, you know what I used before was a chair. You don't need the podium? Okay. Oh. Shh.
Hello? Perfect. Good evening again, everybody. Phil and I are here to discuss the redistricting plan. The redistricting committee started meeting early this year. Was it April? March was our first meeting. We met around probably a dozen times back and forth. We had some extensively long meetings throughout the summer. We sacrificed World Cup matches, football games, and a whole bunch of other stuff to deliver this final product. It is what I would consider a bipartisan effort. It proves that Republicans and Democrats can work together to achieve a map which we think is good for everybody in the town of Fairfield.
Yeah, that's really the message here. This is what we think as a committee is the best thing for the town of Fairfield, and that's why we propose it to the RTM.
We faced many challenges. I'm sure you've heard about it in your subcommittees and your caucuses. The most important aspect of this map is that everybody needs to realize that we needed to carve these districts into the state rep districts. So the original lines were already drawn for us by our state representatives. At the time, State Rep Tony Wong's district was going to get cut into 2 districts. State Representative Brenda Kupchak's was going to get cut into 4, and State Representative Kim Fawcett's was also going to get cut into 4 if we wanted to have a 10-district plan the way we currently have.
Right, so if you look at this map, and if you got really close to it, there's a dotted line through some of the green lines, the thicker green lines. Those are all the lines we didn't draw that were already given to us by the state reps.
We're happy to field any questions if there are any. Yes. Or we'll go through the moderator.
Representative Marmion.
Sheila Marmion, District 6. So, Madam Moderator, through you to the town attorney, can you just kind of clarify for us tonight, if we were to have discussion and then perhaps we wanted to make an amendment, what the process is? Do we then go back to the redistricting committee for their consideration? They would vote on it, then they come back. Can you just walk us through the process of what we're doing tonight and any proposals that we might make, what we do with them?
The only body that can change this ordinance is the committee. So you can talk to the committee any way you want. You can buttonhole them, you can send them uncounted emails, you can call them at all hours of the day and night, but it's up to the committee to do it. You could have a sense of the body resolution, you can do whatever you want, but any changes have to come from the committee at a duly called and noticed meeting. While I'm up here, you know, I've been asked about the meets and bounds description. If you look in your code book, in the book of the ordinances of the town, you'll see that the current ordinance is a meets and bounds description, which has been converted into maps. I don't know whether it was done that way or the other way, the way that you folks did it here, which I think needs to be done. I think it needs to be part of the resolution that's going to be voted on ultimately, so the committee should do that. It's my understanding that the map has been given to the engineering department to make into a meets and bounds description, which is fine. That will not need to go back to LNA. It's simply another expression of the map which has already been voted on. So if they say, put it in a meets and bounds description and we're going to vote on it, doesn't need to go back to LNA, because to LNA. It just the redistricting committee, yes. Whatever that was called.
Sure. Representative Ambrose.
Will this have to go back to the RTM subcommittee, the LNA committee?
To put it in a meets and bounds description, if you look in the code, you'll see that the current description is meets and bounds. And that was apparently converted into a map, so you can just go into Town Hall and look and see what district you're in. They did it, the way that this redistricting committee did it was they formed a map, which now needs to be converted to a meets and bounds description, so you'll have an ordinance. That should come out of the redistricting committee. They should amend their resolution to say, you know, we have the map, but we also want it put into meets and bounds, which I understand is being done. Then that whole resolution can be voted on by this body at the appropriate time.
Skip the entire committee process.
It does not need to go back to the RTM committees, not the LNA committee, any other committee, because it's the same. It's just a different expression of the same thing.
So for further clarification.
I forgot that I'm supposed to call on people. Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, District 1, through you, Madam Moderator, to Attorney Stanton Lesser. Just to be clear on the process of proposing ordinances, I mean, you said, oh, you can call them, you can email them, but don't amendments to the redistricting from this body have to be made on the floor of the RTM, and then the body adjourns, a special meeting is called, they vote whether or not they support it?
No.
So what is the process?
Any proposed amendment must come from the committee. It doesn't come from this body.
No. I thought the process was that any member of this body could make a proposed amendment to the redistricting committee, but then the redistricting committee would meet and vote on that amendment.
You can do that if you want, yeah. They don't have to listen to you, but you can do it.
No, I mean, I think there should be some procedure, you know, in place where, someone could just email them tonight and say, you know, I'd like an amendment, you know, to be made.
That's correct.
But then do they have to meet?
No.
They don't have to meet.
And they don't have to meet if the RTM makes a proposal either. It's up to them. It's up to the committee. They can do what they want.
So
The
it's
ordinance
up to
has
the
to come out of that
committees.
committee.
I understand the ordinance has to come out of the committee, but when we had discussed this at the SLMC meeting, and maybe I misunderstood things, I thought that any member of this body, during the times when the body met and redistricting was on the agenda, that the time to make an amendment to the redistricting ordinance would happen then, and then the RTM would recess, and then the redistricting committee would convene. But what you're telling me now is that's something different.
No, that can happen.
No, can is
Yes.
different than needs to happen.
That's correct. It doesn't need to happen. It's up to the committee as to whether they want to do that. Now, the committee members, one of them could call a meeting. I don't know what the procedure is for the two of them or the four people to decide to call a meeting, but they don't have to.
I'm not sure if I'm the other members who sat in SLMC, I mean, I'm just curious how you thought it had to go automatically in.
I think if the RTM rejects the ordinance, then it has to go back to the committee.
I'm
Start
not
over.
really satisfied with your answer, but I guess it is.
Representative Bateson, Representative Steele, Representative... I'm sorry, if members of the committee wanted to address that.
If the body has amendments, or members of the body have amendments that they want to bring to the committee, we will convene a meeting. Could be the same night as an RTM meeting, it could be another night, and we will consider any amendment that people want to make. Whether we are, it's something we want to really consider fully is a different issue, but.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that it should, I think in fairness to the entire body, if there are amendments, everybody should have their opportunity to have those amendments be voted up or down as the body. We'll take a package, we'll bring it back to the committee. The committee of us, the four original members, will meet on the amendments, and we'll deliver the results of the committee via committee vote on that, and that's the way I understand the process to work. And I'm fully supportive of that, and this RTM's body, you guys, this is the map we delivered, and we're open to hearing suggestions on how to make it better. And we will absolutely listen to them and discuss it.
Representative Bateson, and then I have a question just for clarification.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. Having sat in on the SLMC meetings with listening to Attorney Lesser, I think I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think what Attorney Lesser's saying is he's putting forth the authority of the redistricting committee that this body, we can recommend, or we can recommend an amendment, but we can't tell the redistricting committee what to do. They don't have to take it up. So in other words, we can sit here and say, I want to adjust this district and this. That's not an instruction for them to deal with it. I think that having sat through the court decision and reading it, I think that the redistricting committee has the power to not even take up the matter that we're asking them to do. And I think that's what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay, but hearing the redistricting committee, I think they're more than amenable to taking up what we are. So I see what you're getting at, Representative Farley, but I feel comfortable in the fact that the redistricting committee will consider what amendments we put
And
forward.
that is certainly within their province to do that.
Just from a process standpoint, so I know how to, with the flow, if the sense is from the committee members, as I'm hearing, that they'll take the questions, once they go back and consider those amendments, just to be clear, you don't feel that that needs to go through the committee process again, or at least not back to...
I think that any substantive change in the ordinance, if they were going to change the districts or the number of reps, that would certainly then be a substantive change in the ordinance. It would have to go back to the whatever committees of the RTM it's sent to. But just to put it in meets and bounds would not.
Thank you for for that clarification. Representative Steele, I had recognized you next.
Just a question. So last time we went through this whole thing, we didn't get to the point. We didn't get to the issue of what if there's an amendment because we were dealing with other issues. But so why is this ordinance any different than another ordinance? And this is probably what I would have asked you last year or 2 years ago if we got to it. Why other ordinances can we make an amendment? It comes back to the body. We vote on those amendments. Why is this different? Where does it say that it has to go back to the redistricting? Is there some...
Because of the charter.
So the charter says that all changes have to go back to the...
The charter says that the resolution shall be proposed by this committee. So that's the only one that can actually propose a resolution or an amendment.
Propose, but what about amend, the term amend?
I think it's the same thing. I mean, that's what I ruled the last time. That's really what the lawsuit was about. And
well, it was about many other things, but
no.
But the term amend, but amending
the point is that this ordinance cannot be amended on the floor. It's got to go back to the committee.
That's your interpretation.
Yes.
Representative Jacob. Representative Schwartz, I saw your hand before, but you seem to have your thing answered. Okay, Representative Jacob.
Ellen Jacob, District 9. I would love to have more time with this because I think most of us are seeing it for the first time over the past week. There are some big changes for all of us who are sitting here on this body now, and for our constituents, and with whom over several years we've had close relationships with our neighbors and our neighboring communities. It's a big change. I feel trying to do that. One of my concerns is trying to make a big change like this with fewer reps is trying to leap without anything to soften the landing. And my thoughts are towards considering going back to the 5 reps. Because of that. I think it would just give more, we'd have more coverage, and the transition to those of us who are running again, or incumbents, the transition to slightly different areas that we would be covering, and our constituents to know where they would vote and where they would go to, their polling places would be softened by that. So thank you. I'd love to have more time, though.
Just so you know, this is just on for discussion for this evening. It's not yes, Representative.
I would like to just remind everybody that the original district maps were mailed out last month, so everybody should have had an opportunity to look at these a month ago. This month we're on for discussion. Next month we'd be on for discussion and a vote. So it's a 3-month thing which we've had these maps before we actually take any action on it.
Thank you. Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. Quick thing. I've been involved in redistricting for a couple of years now, unfortunately, and I'm intimately familiar with all the details of it. I guess when we sat down in the SLMC and laid out this calendar, you kind of assume that everyone's going to become aware. This is a pretty all-encompassing, changing ordinance. A lot is affected by it, and I can appreciate that from somebody that's trying to get up to speed and learn the ordinance and actually digest the changes that are happening. And this, I think, is addressing Representative Jacobs' point. I think this is compounded by the fact that the December meeting is literally right around the corner because of the holiday. I know that the December agenda is going to ask for a consider and act, and quite frankly, I'm not going to be pushing the Republican caucus to move and act on this for the simple fact that, we're going to be in the holiday season. We did have a little bit of fudge time built into this calendar. So if it rolls over into the January, I'm not objectionable. I'm not going to object to that. That's just me personally. I mean, if people need time, this impacts us all. And quite frankly, it takes you time to get your hands around this, and I can appreciate that. So to Representative Jacobs' point, I mean, I hear you, and if there's more time to be needed, I can sit down with the minority leader, and we can, if our caucuses are concerned and not ready to act, we'll discuss it, right before the holidays or before we come into the December meeting. Thank you.
Representative Timniak.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to leave Ellen as if like this is going to be next month we have to make a decision. The high probability is the meets and bounds system won't be done by the December meeting, so it would be surprising to have the final package ready for us for that December meeting. So it would be actually an extra month to look at it.
Representative Braun.
Kathy Braun, District 8. I have an interpretation that's slightly like Town Attorney Lesser's and slightly different, so I would just like to float this up. My reading of the charter is, yes, the redistricting committee proposes the ordinance, and it has done so. But there's nothing in here that says the LNA committee is out of the loop. So I'm a little confused over if an amendment goes back to the redistricting committee, why would it be diverted from the LNA committee, the way all ordinances are run through?
The only one that I said wouldn't go back to LNA is simply where you're just changing it to add the meets and bounds. You're not changing anything substantive. Anything else, I think, would go back to LNA.
And then through you, Madam Moderator, again to the town attorney. If somebody wanted the redistricting committee to consider some sort of a amendment that was substantial enough, it would go back through the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think if, let's say that the LNA or the redistricting committee decided, we're going to go back to 5 per district, I think that would be a pretty substantive change. That would go back to LNA.
Now, and just one other point, just by my reading the prior court case, the judge, there was apparently a minor correction done, out of the loop, and it had to do with, I believe, the meets and bounds. I guess things can happen when you convert either direction, map to meets and bounds to map. So if that correction, I wasn't at the court hearing, but my belief was there was a correction made and the judge said, no, that has to go back up the process. That was my understanding of the court case.
Yeah, that was, I think one of the registrars went back and changed the map without telling anybody, and that's where the problem came in. I really don't see that happening with the map as drawn, at least as I've looked at it. There are lines on a map and you can go and do the streets pretty simply. I don't think anything needs to be changed. The one thing that I felt wasn't in the ordinance that should be at some point is the fact that the dividing line is the center line of the streets. That probably should be stated in the ordinance itself. If you look in the existing ordinance, the meets and bounds,
right.
It talks about going to the center line.
Right.
Because now one side of the street's one district, one side's.
So I'm assuming if during the process of the engineering
Just a
department.
clarification.
Thank you. If during the process of the engineering department putting the map into meets and bounds, if there's some kind of an error that has to be fixed, I would assume that would have to go back through that's just my assumption,
Yeah,
so.
I think if you are, probably the committee would probably have to meet and make that change. But I think the committee should probably meet, look at the meets
Yeah.
and bounds description.
I would think so.
Amend the ordinance to add that so that it can all be voted on at the same time.
Thank you.
Representative Schwartz and Representative Hurley.
Hal Schwartz, District 7. I apologize for being late. I was working in D.C. and was on the train. But anyway, just so I completely understand, and through you, Madam Moderator, to the town attorney, any amendments that this body makes and proposes back to the redistricting committee is not necessarily an amendment to the ordinance unless the committee comes back with that as a change. Is that correct? So we can sit here and say anything and everything we want, but until they make that ultimate decision and bring it back to us, it's really not an amendment to the ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, RTM District 1, through you, Madam Moderator, to Attorney Lesser. Just to follow up on that, so just so I'm clear and everyone is clear, a proposal goes to, quote, amend the redistricting ordinance. The redistricting committee meets. If they accept the amendment, then it goes to LNA. If they reject the amendment, that's it, it's done.
Yeah, and unless something changes, it wouldn't have to go back to LNA.
Okay. And how do you define a substantive change?
I think any change in either the boundaries or the number of reps would be a substantive change.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the body for the presenters? Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ed Bateson, District 3. I apologize, but when you say substantive, I'd like that to be clarified, substantive that it impacts the voter. Let's say engineering picks up on something in the ordinance where we feel it shouldn't go down a lake or abut something that doesn't affect the voter. I would like to clarify that you wouldn't refer it back to LNA for something that doesn't impact the voter. I understand if it impacts a voter or moves a house or a residence. That I would agree with. But if it's something that engineering picks up the fact, like up north, it's not Smith Richardson, it's this road.
Representative Bateson, I'll ask you a question. Who decides what goes to LNA? What goes to
me?
The moderator, right?
Okay, moderator.
So I think that the moderator would have to take a look and decide whether to refer it back. I think it depends on the circumstance.
Okay, thank you.
And it might be substantive, but I think if you're moving the districts, if you're moving the lines to affect people, in my own view, but again, it's the moderator who sends things to the committees. If the moderator doesn't feel that it's necessary, then it's up to the moderator. I'm not going to overrule.
Thank you. I'm getting a sense from the committee members that they're looking to be fair and reasonable about this, and I don't anticipate a problem with determining substantive versus formative changes.
No, I think that's a substantial
Correct.
change is a substantial change. We'll go with that. The other thing I want to perhaps throw out, if the meets and bounds system isn't ready for the December meeting, perhaps we could have a discussion on amendments, because the committee will have to meet again. So we might as well have a package of amendments for the December meeting if we want to do that for the committee to analyze. So maybe we should prep ourselves, individual caucuses, determine what they'd like to see, and we'll bring it back all to the committee so that, I mean, at the end of the day, this is our map. Like, this is this RTM body's map, and we want everybody to be comfortable with it, and we want everybody to be supportive of it. And we want everybody to go back to their districts and be proud of their new district and their new neighbors and who they're voting for. So we want to be as inclusive as we possibly can.
Representative Marmion.
Sheila Marmion, District 6. We've had a lot of discussion about process, but I just want to take the opportunity, many of us have said this in committee, to say thank you to the redistricting committee. You did a great job. I think maybe now what we can do is start to discuss whether or not we agree with 10 districts, 4 reps. I, for one, support this. I think it was a compromise. Keeping 10 districts and going down to the 4 representatives, I think we can make this work, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Marmion. Representative Hurley.
Michael Hurley, RTM District 1. One more question. What is the latest that the map could be approved upon and implemented for the November elections?
That I have that date, actually, if you hold on one second. Well, here, I know, but here's the issue, and I'm not, The issue is you have to deal with primaries, and you have to back up the dates. I think I gave everybody a notice on this to answer how this all backs up. Maybe I thought this came out originally. Maybe not, and I can distribute it. But the bottom line end date would be that you need to have something in place 90 days from the primary. And then if you work it backwards, depending on what those changes are, and if it does need to go to LNA and go through the whole committee process again and sit on the call, et cetera, you'd have to have this done by the beginning of March if you're going to have to go through the whole process again.
Could you clarify what you mean you have to have it all done by March?
I can't hear you.
What do you mean it has to be all done? This body has to approve it?
It would have to be presented back to the body by March so that it could go on the call and to go to LNA. Because that way, by the time it worked its way through our committee system, you would vote by the end of April.
Okay, thank you.
I also just too want to mention that, there's a lot of steps that have to go into place in order for that to happen. So there's notifications and things like that as well. Maybe Representative Pierce can speak to
That was my point, because I think before the ordinance becomes effective, it has to be published by the town clerk. I'm not sure how many days that is and how much that backs it up, in addition to the primary backing it up.
I do see one of the registrars here. Do you have any more additional information that you'd like to add in terms of when it would need to get done with the primaries? I don't know if the town clerk wants to speak as the town clerk on that.
Matt Wagner from the registrar's office. I just know that the last time around it came down to when the nominating meetings were happening. It was the plan in place prior to that? So you could do it pretty much up until when the parties do their nominating. I'm pretty sure that's in July in 2015. But again, when you say how many RTM meetings have to happen, how long the clerk needs to notice it, March sounds like about the time. I haven't worked it backwards for 2015 yet.
Right. Except I know there's state statutes that say they have to get it done before that primary, because you have to put out the polling location changes 90 days prior. That's the biggest issue. I believe Representative Pierce is nodding his head. Representative Marks.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Alan Marks. I really tried to not get up here. But, it's hard. The only thing I wanted to say is somebody made the point earlier that there are a lot of changes to the districts, and the people who are in our districts need to get used to it. So the earlier we can put something in place so that people are used to it, the better for everyone. That's all I want to say.
Selectman McCarthy Vahey.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And thanks also to our former moderator, Representative McCullough. I am up here because I may not be able to make it next month, and after that, I won't be an ex officio member able to speak in this capacity. I want to echo what was said about congratulations and thanks to the committee members behind me over here and Representative Marks. I think this is a tremendous compromise, and it is slightly uncomfortable for many of us. On Election Day, those of us in District 6 were lamenting the fact that after 10-plus years together, we weren't going to be together anymore, most likely. I would love to hear tonight any conversation about proposed amendments, because the members of the public, as Representative Marks said, would love to know if people want to look at changes to this map, which I think was the hard work that went into this, the thoughtfulness, If there are folks sitting here tonight who have ideas, I, for one, would be interested in hearing those. I'm supportive of this. I think it is a very fair map, and I think it serves the interests of all the voters in Fairfield. So I hope that you will support it. But if you are interested in improvements or changes or suggestions, I'd love to hear about it tonight. Thanks.
Representative Dean.
Representative Dean, District 4, soon to be District 3, or somewhere along the lines there. I also want to congratulate you, Madam Moderator. Well done. And thank Mary for being our first female moderator. That was wonderful, and congratulations. One of the things, I do serve on LNA, and one of the things that I was most impressed with was the 4 members of this committee took really great pride in coming together initially and consistently through it all to make sure they got a map in place that made sense. And originally I had wanted 10 and 5. I was really firm about this. And through listening to the discussions, I realized that it really is all about compromise, and it's about making changes, and sometimes it is uncomfortable. My whole district has completely changed. I'm a chard. I'm like Florida, you know, somewhere along the lines. It is what it is. I'm going to have to meet new people. I'm not particularly happy about it. I've been serving for 10 years now. It's my 5th term, but it's what I have to do. I just keep focusing on the work that the 4 members put together and how they work together, and how the pride that they took in putting this all together. And they didn't take into consideration where any one person was going to be on this body. They took into consideration having the lines cut the cleanest and the most efficiently, and to make sure that the numbers were balanced. And I thank you for that.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Do you guys have anything you want to wrap up with? I just want to say, as the moderator, I do think it's a fair request that the committee has asked that you try and do your best to put forth any amendments next month so that they can start to think about a package and put things together and give them time to review it. So I would ask for your consideration as the moderator to think about that and to start to put those things together. So that we can keep the process moving along. And we will await to hear, I guess, Mr. Timniak from engineering as to when the meets and bounds will be ready, and then go from there. So, thank you. Thank you. Item number 10, the moderator has referred the following amendment, 9515.1, to the Town Code, to the Legislation and Administration Committee under Rule 32 of the RTM Rules to Regulate. At its first regularly scheduled meeting in January 2016, the representative town meeting shall convene a special committee to review Article Town of Fairfield, Connecticut, tax relief for the elderly and disabled owners of Chapter 95, tax relief for the elderly and disabled owners. I'm thinking that was maybe a little bit of an error, or maybe I read that wrong. That's notice to everyone here. Item number 11, the moderator has referred a Fair TV ordinance sponsored by Sheila Marmion, District 6, and Catherine Braun, District 8, to the LNA Committee under Rule 32 of the RTM Rules to Regulate. Is there any update on this particular ordinance? Seeing none. Item number 12, the moderator has referred an alternate side of the street parking restriction ordinance to the LNA Committee under Rule 32 of the RTM Rules to Regulate. Is there anything reporting out of LNA? Representative Steele, I don't see him moving, so I'll take that as a no. And the final item is to consider and act upon any other matters presented to said meeting and which may be properly acted upon under the rules of the representative town meeting. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Representative Dean? Yes, we did. Representative Dean, seconded by Representative Marks. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned.